Hello.
Hello.
Good to see all of you. Get to the end of the day, we get a little bit pooped, but then you got your party time, and so all of a sudden energy comes back. So, yeah. What I want to do tonight, Richard asked me to make sure to remember to do the thing I referenced last night about Jesus on the cross and things that he suggested we do as people in ministry. And I will do that. But before I do, I want to make sure that there are no burning thoughts or questions you have from the performances earlier that you talked about or thought about and said I should have asked a question. Are there any questions or thoughts? Yes, sir.
I had a thought. So,
Is it an important one?
it's very
Okay, good.
So, Judas was, I believe in my mind that Judas was chosen to be an apostle partly because he was going to betray Jesus. Maybe if Jesus didn't know, but God, being omnipotent, would know what the path is going to be. So potentially through the Holy Spirit, he was chosen. And to say, you said he was the only one from Judea, and that they looked down on the Galileans, and what did they do? They judged them, right? They looked down on somebody who judged them, and he ends up betraying Jesus, and then people are judging him now since that time. And it seems almost like a circle, but then you also have to complete that circle and say, well, then if I am judging Judas, then I am doing exactly what made him to be chosen, which was those flaws which probably you shouldn't, right? So.
Yeah. Did y'all hear what he said? Bottom line, the point was Judas, he says, was chosen because he had the ultimate task of betraying Jesus. And when we judge Judas, we're no better than what? Then we're no better than Judas, who was judging the Galilean Jews. Let me take issue with that in this way. I do not believe that Judas was chosen because he was going to betray Jesus. I don't think that we serve a God who wants us to make mistakes. There's this very difficult thing to explain, the idea that just because God knows something's going to happen doesn't necessarily mean that he wants it to happen or is going to make it happen. And that's a distinction that's important because, yes, God knew that Judas was going to do what Judas did, but I don't believe that he wanted him to. I believe that, and that's why I put the line in the script where after his feet are washed and after he sits with Jesus, asks Judas to sit with him at table. That's why, and by the way, there's an indication that Judas actually sat close to Jesus at the Last Supper because Jesus leans over to him and says, go do what you must do and do it quickly. And there's no indication that anybody else heard that. So it's likely that Judas was given a place of prominence at the table. I would suggest it's perhaps because, and his washing his feet is because Jesus was being Jesus, which means he's always wanting us to be the better part of ourselves. He's always wanting us to change from our bad ways. He never stops loving us, but he's always encouraging us to be better. And I think he was doing that with Judas. That's why I gave Judas the line that says, you see, that's how much he loves me. He was giving me a chance to make a different decision, to make a different choice. So I personally have a problem with the concept that he was chosen because he knew he was going to betray him. I think that, I'll put it another way. Maybe he chose him because he wanted to give him a chance to make a different choice. Jesus was going to be betrayed. Jesus was going to die. Jesus was going to go through the pain and suffering of death and the spilling of blood as the sacrificial lamb for all of us. Anyway, whether it was Judas or not. So the God that I serve, the God that I love, the God who loves me, I don't think consciously wants us to be in a place where we will be hurt. And so I don't think that that Judas would be chosen because he's going to do something bad. Does that make sense? Yeah, I know that maybe it's a semantic argument there, but in reality, the God that created us, the God that loves us, wants only the best for us. And so that's what I believe. It's there and then here. No, you, yeah.
So Rich and I were talking about it earlier, the connection between the line that like someone who is going to betray me, and then later on in the Garden of Gethsemane where Jesus is praying and asking for the Father to like, hey, if this cup can pass, let me do that. So his humanity and his divinity, and so and then what you had said a second ago about like him being the sacrificial lamb, right? So his death was not predestined, but foreshadowed. It was in part of the plan.
Jesus' death?
Jesus' death,
Yeah.
in the plan of salvation. Was betrayal, because remember there's like in the prophetic writings, there's a lot of different imagery and stuff. Was there anything about like betrayal being, or the people closest to you turning against you, was any part of that plan, or is that like the extra sting that maybe the betrayal and Jesus' desire for Judas to make a different decision, where it's like, you're doing something in addition to the plan. The Romans could just come and kill me and everything will still be fulfilled. You, my closest friend, don't have to be part of it.
Yeah, and I
Some element of that?
yes, I think that that's probably likely. I think that Jesus is always going to be giving us an opportunity to make a different choice or a different decision. And I mean, a person who's an addict, they can always choose the next day, even though it's difficult, to not drink or not do the drugs that next day. They can, or whatever their addiction is, not turn on the porn or not do whatever they're going to do. And Jesus always wants us to make the right choice for us, even though Jesus knows what we're going to do. And so that's, I think, the similar thing with Judas. I truly believe he put him next to him at the Last Supper, and he did, because he was trying to say, you don't have to go that route. God's will is going to be done. You're not going to stop the will of God. God's will reach the surface. I am going to die. I am going to suffer. Jesus is the only person in history born to die. We're all born and will die, but Jesus' sole purpose in being born was to die. And he's the only person like that. So it was going to happen. And as far as him agonizing, and part of what I'll share here this evening is that agonizing that he did between the divinity, Jesus being the divine and being the human. I mean, that's hard for us to grasp. And one other comment I'll make about Jesus, there are those who believe that Jesus was all-knowing from the very beginning, shortly after he was born. And I don't think that's true. I think Joseph, Scripture gives us this wonderful line with Joseph and Jesus after they find him in the temple, that Jesus grew in age and he grew in wisdom and he grew well by the standards of men. Jesus' knowledge of who he was something that came over time. By the time you get to the Last Supper, which is just 2 days before he's dead, one day before he's dead, Last Supper Thursday, and then on Friday he's crucified. I think he had he knew then. And leading up to it, within that 3 years, I think he did a lot of growth as far as coming to better understandings of how things were going to happen and his role and blah, 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 and who was going to be involved. But I don't think he ever stopped encouraging people to be the better part of who they were. It goes against everything that I believe about God to think that he was chosen just because he was predestined. It's just, that's not the God that I serve. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Yes, sir.
In your excellent presentation, you said...
Which one?
Judas.
Oh, okay.
Presentations.
No. I'm just fun.
You said, I didn't do it for the money. Two questions. What did you do it for? And was Jesus' execution an unintended consequence of Judas' actions in his mind? And did he do this because he was too anxious for Jesus to come out into the world more, so he wanted to like put him in front of the Sanhedrin, and and you need to get up there and preach in the Crystal Palace, and this, I know this is the wrong way to do it, but it's my way, and I want to do it my way, and you have to get up there, and now he's executed. That was a horrible unintended consequence. Is that true?
Yeah, that's what I believe.
Okay.
That's what from Judas's perspective. Yeah, that it started going down a path he didn't want it to go, and when he realized that what he did, his intention was to put Jesus in the forefront, so others would realize, and he would come into his Messiah position. It went backwards.
So he did it for manipulative purposes.
Yeah.
To perhaps promote Jesus' existence rather than try to tear him down. And anyway, he did it for, he had good intentions, but bad result. Is that right?
I don't think he had good intentions. I think he had good intentions for himself. I think manipulative is a good word. I think he wanted it the way he wanted it, and he wanted it in his time frame. And we're all like that a little bit, that's one of those human sides of us that we want it now. We want it to happen the way we want it to happen. And I think that Judas was just being a human being, and he was, whereas Peter would make mistakes and then realize it and ask for forgiveness. Judas would make a mistake and think that he would convince himself he's doing it for the right reason. Yeah, it would justify it in his own mind. And again, we do that. And that's why it's important to look at Judas as a human being, because we do that. We make mistakes, and then we try to justify it. And we got to stop doing that because that's the wrong way. Yes, Sal?
Just an observation. It's pretty amazing how we're going round and round with Judas and his dilemma. It's his human nature. He pointed it out that when we sin, there's guilt. We feel guilt, just like he did, just like Judas did. And in that sense, there might be a chance for redemption for him.
Oh, I think there is a chance for redemption. I think there's a chance for redemption for Adolf Hitler, for the guy responsible, who is it, Mao, who was responsible for the killing fields. I mean, all these horrible, horrible, horrible creatures in the world. It's not my job to judge them. I think what they did is heinous and they should burn in hell, but thank God it's not up to me. It's up to God. And so, yeah, there's possibilities of redemption. The God that we serve says, you come to me, you ask for forgiveness with a contrite heart, you will be forgiven. And we either believe that or we don't. You can't say, well, I believe it if it's a person I like, or I don't believe it if it's a person that I disagree with. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anything else? Yes, Al.
Sometimes people forget the part of the Bible that says we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but we're wrestling with principalities.
A little louder, I'm sorry.
We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with municipalities,
Yeah.
and devil, and all this other stuff. Matter of fact, if we could see the full dimension of what's going on around us, they might be here right now trying to destroy us, with angels trying to save us. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think about the person, the people, somebody I don't like, or this or that, but there's much more to it than what we see.
Well, exactly right. There's more to, that's why judging isn't our job. That's why, there's no way we can fully understand or see what's going on. So you're right. I agree with that. Anything else? Okay.